Hi there, my name is Rebecca Mander, and I'm really excited to be joining you for this very special talk. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm going to be sharing my story. I'm going to be sharing my journey with you in the hope that it will inspire you to make the changes that you need to make in your career or in your life. Sometimes we face adversity and it can be really challenging and we can get stuck in that victim space. And so I'm going to be sharing my journey that has helped other people. It's the reason I became a coach. And I'm going to be giving you a tool, a free tool to use time and time again to help you bounce forward in your career or your personal lives when you really need it most, to help you build that resilience and to have some confidence to come out of your comfort zone so that you can bounce forward the best way possible. So before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm here. I'm really excited to share another piece of news with you. So earlier this year, in fact, I'm going to tell you about my beautiful boy, Charlie. Well, earlier this year in March, well, actually it was February, on his what would have been his 18th birthday, we received this award. And here I am with part of my team. This is Alison, who's my amazing PA. In fact, she's away this week and I've made so many mistakes. You have no idea. So I really rely on Alison to keep me organized. I'm so disorganized. And then we have Ruby here, who is my daughter, and she's 16. And she just needed another excuse to wear her prom dress, really. So really lovely to have her here. And it was lovely to have them because we won the award for Best Programme Excellence in Education. And we were up against some really tough competition. And we really didn't think we would be successful, but we were. So here's for some positive thinking in the future. But it was really, really exciting. We won this award for the Bounce Forward programme. And the Bounce Forward program helps people get out of their own way in their career. It's really successful with certain clients. And for example, we get 1 out of 3 people promoted at the end of the program. That mindset is 80% of performance. So all those Olympic athletes you're watching at the moment, if you're watching it in 2024, what month are we in? August, July, August, their mindset is what's making them separate from other people. Their USP is their brilliant mindset. And sometimes our mindset is not our best friend and it can be thwarting our performance. And so Bounce Forward works with hundreds of people to change that, to get their mindset really in tip-top condition for the highest performance possible. And so we won the award for that. And I'm here to share with you a little bit about the Bounce Forward program and how it came about. As I said, it wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for our journey. And so these 2 amazing ladies are really a big part of that journey. So when we go through life, we're quite often choosing whether we realize it or not between victim or victor. And that's a big part of the work I do. When I'm working with my clients, they might be wanting to get to the role of leader, or they're in middle management and they want to be better within their team. They might want to have more visibility. They want to have more confidence. And victim and victor is a phrase I use so much. We can't control everything that happens to us. Sometimes it feels, how do you expect me to bounce forward when my husband's left me? How do you expect me? I didn't have a choice about that health diagnosis. I didn't have a choice about the fact that they haven't even considered me for promotion. Yes, you're right. We don't have a choice of those things, but we have a choice on how we respond to those things. So we are able to respond in a way that we choose. So we are responsible, I guess. That's how I like to use that phrase anyway. And so, yes, we can have other people to help us. Yes, we can look to what we've done in the past. And I'm going to come on to that in a little bit. But it is that choice. Being the victim is quite comfortable. When we're in that space, we know it because we're not moving forward, but we're getting lots of fuss. People are looking after us. People are offering us solutions and ideas, probably that we're turning down because we're choosing to stay in that victim space. Being the victor is far less comfortable. It normally takes us way out of our comfort zone, but actually that is where the magic happens. That's where we bounce forward. So, when we're making those choices, be really mindful. Next time you're feeling negative about a situation, think, am I in the victim space here where I'm not going to move forward? How can I be in the victor space? What do I have to do? And Stephen Covey came up with the circle of concern and the circle of influence, which demonstrates beautifully the difference between victim and victor. If I have a small amount of influence, then I am probably complaining about things that are happening around me. The policy is rubbish. There's no chance of promotion here because we're such a small company and no one ever leaves. No one invites me to any meetings. No one listens to me in meetings. Why won't my best friend give me a call? Well, why is it me that always makes the call? She never calls. He doesn't listen to me. These phrases go on and on and on, and you can notice that in order for the person saying those phrases to feel better, they need their external world to change. They need someone to come and tap them on the shoulder and say, that policy that you haven't mentioned you're not happy with, well, I've guessed that you're not happy and we're going to change it for you. In that respect, that person would feel so happy and they'd be back in their center of power. But we know that that's very unlikely to happen. It's waiting for our friend to say, I'm so sorry. I'm rubbish at getting in touch. I really appreciate it every time you do. I'm really sorry I don't. That's never going to happen. We could be waiting forever. And while we're in that space, we have a small amount of influence and we're in the victim space. If we want to have a larger amount of influence, we notice our language starts to change. Who could I speak to about the policy? It's driving me mad, and it means that X, Y, and Z is happening in the business, and I'm not sure that everyone's taken that into consideration. Maybe there's some influence I could have here by just speaking to my line manager. How could I be more visible? Maybe I need to get some feedback about the way I am in meetings. Maybe I feel like no one's listening because I could be presenting myself in the wrong way. How could I get my message across more effectively? Or in our personal lives, maybe I need to sit and have a coffee with my friend and share how I'm feeling. You can see that there's a tiny little word that's being used regularly in my phrases, my examples, and that's I. What can I do? That's where we feel more in our center of power because we are in control. You may have a friend or a colleague that you feel is in the victim space and you're spending time with them to try and help them feel better and you're trying to fix it. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And you come away from having a coffee with them and you're exhausted because all your energy has been going to try and fix that person. And they're saying, yeah, no, I can't do that because I've got a babysitter. No, I can't do that. I can't afford it. Yeah, no, can't do that. For whatever reason, it just goes on and on and on. You keep trying to bring them solutions. The best way to help someone or yourself when you're in the victim space is to say, what can you do about it? And if they say, I don't know, ask them again. Imagine you did know. Imagine you had all the knowledge in the world to find out the solution. What would you do next? Who do you know that can help you? What have you tried that's worked? What have you not tried? What have you tried that hasn't worked? Keep putting it back on that person or yourself if you feel that they or you are in the victim space. Okay, so would you like me? Well, hopefully you would. I'm going to anyway, share my story of how I came from the victim to the victor space. And it is a sad story, I won't lie, but it definitely has a happy ending. You remember the picture of my daughter there. She is our happy ending. And so I'd be really happy to share that story with you. The story does contain the story of infant loss. So this is just a little trigger warning for those of you who might have suffered in the same way. So here I am. It's, I think this is taken in 2007 when I was a managing director, but at the point at which my story starts, I was sales director. Now, my mum had poached me to come and work for her. My mum was a really heart-led, compassionate leader. She led with backbone. You wouldn't cross her, but she really cared about her people. There's a beautiful book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott, and she definitely had it. She really cared about her people, so she could be very, very candid about how you're performing. We got 24/7 feedback, and I loved working for her. And we were very close. So when I was working at British Airways, which was just my dream job was to be working at British Airways. I was working for the CEO. I'd just come back from a lovely flight in Mauritius with my husband for £99. And my mum said, Rebecca, would you like to come work for me? Well, let me tell you, my mum's company was my granddad's before then, but my mum and granddad's company sold doorbells. I mean, ding dong. I don't think so, Mum. I've just come off a flight from Mauritius for £99. But she was very persistent, and actually she was very generous. And, you know, when you work for a company like British Airways, there's a lot to be said for the brand, and that, you know, they ride on that, don't they? And so I thought, actually, I could be closer to home, have my own company car, and might be better off with my mum. She was a brilliant leader. And from what I was seeing in the industry at the time, there weren't many of those. They were quite thin on the ground. And I didn't want to stand out. They were fighting to keep me, but I didn't want to stand out for, the, you know, alone amongst not great leaders. And I knew I could learn so much from her. And a lot of the training that I'd done, I could bring to the organization. So there I was. I swapped the glamorous waterside at Heathrow, just the most beautiful offices ever, for my mum's office or warehouse and office in Wharfside, actually, quite ironic. So we were on the cut. And you know, canal running past us with a, you know, occasional rat. So far removed. I swapped my journey on the M25, quite thankfully, actually, for journeys up and down the M6, where I would be going around, you know, with my sample case of doorbells and going to electrical wholesalers, and they would be, it's like they'd never seen a woman before. And I did use that to great effect to get some sales just by being a woman, I suppose, was a bonus, but it really led to some difficult, you know, conversations. I remember, you know, I'd go in and go, hi, do you want to buy a doorbell? And they'd say, no, love, but you got any knockers? Yes, so it wasn't easy, and it wasn't glamorous at all, but I knew I had to work hard because I was the boss's daughter. And I did. I worked really, really hard. And my mum sold the company actually during my time as managing director, and they encouraged me to become sales director. And that really meant a lot that they would do that. And so I was sales director by the time that my story begins. And I was sales director, and we had a particularly difficult day at work. And so I came home and picked up Joshua from school, and oh no, Joshua's still at nursery actually, and Charlie from nursery, and Charlie had a cold. But we decided we're going to go out and have a curry with some friends and cheer ourselves up after the really difficult day, upsetting a supplier, a customer. It was just, you know, I was really, really stressed. I just returned back from maternity leave. And, you know, I just didn't feel great. So anyway, we did that. We went for a curry. And when we came back, Charlie was up with the babysitter. And I gave him a bottle, gave him a cuddle, and left him in his cot and went back down to watch the end of Jonathan Ross. Well, when we came back from that, an hour later, we were going to go to bed, Craig and I, and checked on the children, as you do, before you go to bed. And Joshua was there and he was fast asleep with his Power Ranger clasped in his fist. It was all hot and sweaty. And then we went to check in on Charlie. Now, Charlie was not okay. Charlie was face down in his cot. And when I turned him over, he was blue. I grabbed his body, his life, it was just so still, and took him into Craig, thinking Craig would tell me I was being dramatic because I am quite a dramatic person. And he didn't. We couldn't even think off the top of our heads the number to dial for the ambulance. We were in so much shock. And of course, it took milliseconds, but it felt like forever before we remembered those three numbers. The ambulance arrived within minutes. They shot up the stairs, grabbed Charlie, took him and put him in an ambulance. I was with Charlie and Craig was following on behind, ringing my parents and family in France to say, you need to come home quickly. We think that Charlie might be dying. When we got to the ambulance, when we got to the hospital, I didn't care what anyone thought. I was on my knees praying for a miracle. And I really, really believed one would happen. Charlie was surrounded with all these people trying to resuscitate him. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, what is he going to be if he's been without oxygen for this long? What will that mean? And Craig and I were just waiting. And I really prayed for a miracle. But sadly, on the 31st of March, 2007, that miracle that I wanted didn't happen. And we lost our beautiful boy, Charlie. So why am I telling you this really, really sad story? Well, I guess it's because in that moment, not in that moment, no, it wasn't in that moment. It was probably in the weeks that followed, maybe the months that followed. I thought, I know straight away, I thought, I'm never going to laugh again. I'm never going to smile again. I'm never going to be the life and soul of the party, which people often accuse me of being. I'm certainly not going to be doing any silly Tina Turner impressions. They're very good, by the way, after a gin and tonic. Get me to show you next time I see you. But yeah, I thought that side of me was gone. And I don't think it took me long. I think I remember the next day thinking, how can I fix this? I need to get pregnant and I need to quickly fix this. But of course, that was not a rational thinking. But over the next few weeks, I thought of two other women that I knew, two lovely ladies who had also lost children. Now, they had lost children of an older age. Charlie was just over 1 year old. But they had lost, significantly older children. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that is my future. And I can only describe them as walking, talking shells. They had no sparkle in their smile. They had no soul in their eyes. They were sad and they were grieving years later. And then I thought of Joshua telling, it's fast forward 10 years and Joshua being a 14-year-old boy telling his counselor, my life was never the same again until the day after the day my brother died. And so I think it was that fear of that future that drove me. I didn't want that. I remember thinking it was as if someone had given me a pair of flip-flops and said, there's a mountain, off you go and climb it. It felt impossible that I would ever get back to some kind of version of what I was before, but I knew what I didn't want. Now, my brother calls me his bossy big sister. I call myself the queen of delegation. And I delegate the hell out of stuff. And I help my clients do that all the time by reframing what delegation means. So if you ever want some help on delegation, you know where to come. But I thought, I know I can't do this on my own. As I said, it felt like that huge mountain. And so I asked for help. The NHS were amazing. I hadn't been offered it. I'm sure it might have come had I been, rocking myself in a corner backwards and forwards, but at the point I wasn't. And so I asked to see the specific person, and she was incredible. I saw her every week for 2 years. and her name was Kirsty Mackenzie McCarg. Bit of a mouthful, but worth it. She was fabulous. She's since moved to Australia, but absolutely wouldn't be where I am today without her guidance and her support. The police had turned up on the night and made us feel, no, they hadn't made us feel, but we felt very guilty. They said they were asking the scene of crime officer to come down, and that just felt horrible. And so I went and spoke to the chief of police at the local station, and I could be assured that after that conversation, the next family might be handled a bit more differently. And I'd got something off my chest a few months after that hideous night. And then, of course, as a parent, you always think, I've got one job. I have one job, and that's to look after your child. And, you know, if they even fall off the swings at the play park, you feel like you haven't done your job. And so you can imagine how I felt. And I thought, in 10 years' time, if I'm still killing myself over feeling guilty, beating myself up, no one will remember. So I need to act now. And I asked to speak to the pathologist who conducted Charlie's post-mortem. And an hour later, and an A4 sheet of questions later, I knew that we couldn't have done anything. Charlie had died of pneumococcal septicemia, and it was a rare form of pneumonia that probably he picked up on a plane or in nursery. And it was just something that we don't vaccinate against in the UK. Even though he'd been vaccinated, they have to pick a certain amount for you to be vaccinated. And in the UK, this was not one of them. Sorry, my light has just gone out. So let's see if I can switch it back on. It's a bit dingy in here. No, it'll come on in a minute. I'll try again in a bit. So those people really, really helped me. They really supported me. And we wouldn't be where we are without those amazing people. And then in 2008, we had another tragedy. My mum, our CEO, passed away very suddenly. And oh my goodness, I can't tell you, she was the person who carried me through that year. And 11 days after celebrating the birth of our daughter, my mum passed away. And so I was asked by the parent company if I would become the managing director. I was like, are you joking? I'm grieving my mum. I'm grieving my son. And we've just had Ruby was she was 3 months old. So I was, due to come back from maternity leave. And I was thinking, are you absolutely out of your minds? This is impossible. But I think the previous year had taught me something, and that was you always have a choice. And so again, I looked at all my options. I thought, who can help me here? It was the guy down the road who had a manufacturing company. He was really helpful. It was my boss in Holland, the parent company. And it wasn't without its challenges. In the same year, the country went into economic decline with a global financial crisis. And the company that bought us for millions, we were now reporting a minus £146,000 loss. But I had this choice. And so I said to my husband and my brother, who would be working with me, what do we do? And we thought about the worst that could happen if we didn't do it, and the worst that can happen if we did. And, and so many people in the company, if you remember, very heart-led, compassionate leadership style, so many were suffering because they'd lost that. And they were also suffering because they'd seen us suffering through the loss of Charlie. And I just thought there's only so much change anyone can take. And someone new coming in that might have a completely different culture was just too much of a risk. And so I gathered the troops again, delegated the hell out the task I had ahead of me, and we made it. And in 2014, when I decided to leave, we were turning over £14 million. That's a lot of doorbells. But yeah, we were doing really, really well as a family and as a business. We'd come through the other side. And lots of people were saying to me, how did you do it, Rebecca? How do you keep going? How do you look the part when internally you're falling apart? And I found it so rewarding by sharing my story on various different platforms and found out about the world of coaching whilst I was doing that. I was talking at Warwick University once, and I learned about this world of coaching. And I just thought, oh my goodness, that's everything in my job that I love, that people development, that challenge. I didn't even mind difficult conversations with people, that radical candor I talked about earlier. I didn't mind that. I loved it, in fact. And it was all the bits I didn't like, worrying about the stakeholders and the shareholders, sorry, and, the profitability, the bottom line. Of course, I have to worry about that now, but I'm not answering to a load of scary people. I was the only woman on the board in that organization as well. And, pretty much I'd had my time, and I wanted to do something a bit more rewarding for myself. And so I decided to retrain. And that's why I got here in front of you today. And my niche is supporting senior leaders through personal setback. So, it doesn't have to be as dramatic as the one I've been talking to you about, but going through divorce or financial challenges, going through bereavement, of course. It's very hard for a leader. We know that 75% of leaders would not tell a HR representative in their organization what they're going through, but they will share something with an executive coach that can help them with their goals and their challenges at the same time as looking after their well-being. And so that's why I decided to retrain. And I was asked to share my story. And I thought, well, a story is all very well and good, but everybody has a story. What about, how can we help people? How can they do what I did? What's the tool that's going to help them get from that victim space to the victor space? And I really wanted to give them that. And so we created Charlie's Star. Now, I was going to call it the 5-point coaching model, but a lovely speaker, said to me, Rebecca, why don't you call it Charlie's Star? And I thought, oh, that's a brilliant idea, but it's not very corporate. And actually, when I was often visiting Charlie's bedroom after he died, I'd go in there before bed and just have a think about him. There was always this large star shining out the window. And I used to think that was Charlie saying goodnight. I remember my aunt saying, oh no, Rebecca, no, that's the North Star. I was like, off. It's not, that's Charlie's star. But yeah, so Charlie's Star is what the model is called. And I'm delighted to be able to share that with you now. And it's a great tool about how we can bounce forward, So think about now, you can pause this video if you want. Just have a think about something that you need to do to help you in your career or bounce forward in your personal life. Something that's maybe going to take you out of your comfort zone. Maybe it's a presentation, maybe it's a job application, something that you really like to do to stretch yourself. Then we're going to think about also, if you haven't got that, it might be you've got a big decision to make. And maybe I do this, or maybe I do that. Or maybe you're going through a significant setback in your life and you'd like to have a bit more confidence to help you bounce forward through that. So I'm going to take you through Charlie's Star now. And just as you go, just pause the video. Excuse me. Just pause the video and work on it yourself. You might even want to come back to it. I'm going to grab a cup of tea and work through this with me. Okay. So the first part of the star is your admirer. I'd like you to think of somebody who really, really admires you in the same sphere of influence as your challenge that you're thinking about. So if you're thinking about a work challenge, someone who sees you in work and thinks, wow, they are smashing it. Now, this person doesn't need to work with you or for you. It could be your mum listening to your stories about your work, or your best friend, but someone who admires you. If it's a personal situation, maybe you're struggling with a challenging teenager, it's someone who admires you as a parent. Okay, so who is your admirer? Now, what words of encouragement would they give you? Just write those down. While you do that, I'm going to have a sip of water. What words of encouragement would they give you? And what strengths do they see in you? What strengths do they see in you? If I was to ask them, why do you think that why do you think that X is so good? Why are you encouraging that person? Think what they would say to me. Oh, because they are so blah, 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 blah. What would they say? What are your strengths that they see in you? Just write them down and pause if you need more time, because I'm going to go on to the next one. The next one is the inspirer. Now, this is someone that you admire, someone that inspires you, someone you look to and think, yes, you're smashing it. I'd like to have a little bit of what she's got or he's got. So for me, if you remember, it was the manufacturer down the road, or it was my mum. Quite often, it was my mum. Your inspirer does not have to be living and breathing. They could be someone who's gone before you. They could be someone famous that you know, a sports personality, or, I don't know, Karen Brady or Peter Jones. Doesn't matter. Who inspires you? And think about what they would do if they were in your situation. If they were in the situation that you're thinking about, what would they do? What strengths do they have that you perhaps need to dial up? Now, remember, when you're thinking about this, the inspirer, whether they are, whoever they are, will probably be operating outside your comfort zone. But don't worry, that's why they inspire you. They're not inspiring you because they operate within your comfort zone. They're doing something slightly ahead, perhaps. And that's something that you would like to be able to master. So whether or not that's your personal or professional, just think of someone who inspires you in the same space as your challenge. And remember, your challenge can be just a way to get out of your comfort zone, some confidence that you need, or a decision that you've got to make. Just pause it here if you would like. I'm going to move on to the next one. The next person is the firer. Now, this is the Lord Sugar, the worst that can happen. What's the worst that can happen if you move forward in one way? And what's the worst that can happen if you move forward in the other? So two parts to this one. So as an example, remember, my worst that could happen if I took on the business and would be that I would fail miserably. But at least I would known I'd tried. And the worst that could happen if I didn't take on the business was that someone would come in who didn't have our culture, didn't have our ethos, and the company wouldn't remain as heart-led and compassionate and as entrepreneurial as it was. Even for a multi-million-pound company, we were quite entrepreneurial, and we had the best figures in the organization. So have a think about that. Have a think about the worst that can happen if you do move forward and the worst that can happen if you don't. Take your time. You're going to get a PDF at the end anyway, so you'll be able to do this in your own time. But press pause if you'd like longer, because I'm about to move on to the hirer. This is my favorite one. This is the best that can happen. What's the best that can happen if you move forward in the way you want to, or you brave way? What's the best that can happen if you stand still? So remember, my best that could happen would be that we would fix it, that we would be a family of 4, perhaps, that Joshua would have a sibling, and that Craig and I would not separate. So the best that can happen would be that we were happy and a healthy family. And that's exactly what we got, I'm pleased to say. Joshua never was that 14-year-old boy in the counsellor's office. In fact, he never needed any therapy because he was getting so much of that at home through the advice we were getting. And 90% of marriages break down following the loss of a child, tragically. But we weren't one of those statistics. So the best that can happen actually did happen. The best that could happen if I hadn't put all that work in, asked for the support of other people, would be that we'd probably stay together as a family. We might even have another child. but would we have been as happy? That would be the best that can happen if we didn't do anything, if I hadn't put all that effort in. And then the final piece is really, really important. And it's one we often forget because we don't want to bother anyone. But the inquirer is really important. The inquirer is who or what do you need to know in order to help you bounce forward in your challenge. So who do you need to have coffee with? Maybe it's your inspirer. Who do you need to learn from? What research do you need to do? Who can help you here? So you remember mine, the pathologist, the police, the psychologist, the guy down the road. Yeah, so many. I have so many mentors. And if you don't have a mentor in your life right now, the first thing you need to do after you finish this call is to go and find one, because a mentor will give you unbiased support and it's a great confidence booster. So find your mentor now. But the inquirer, back to the inquirer, someone who can help support you. A question you need to answer as you've been going through the star, you might be thinking, yeah, but I don't know whether that's possible. I don't think that's possible because, right, your inquirer is the one that's going to help you find that out. What research do you need to do? Who do you need to speak to that's going to help you decide whether or not you can move forward in that way? And finally, there's your action. What action are you going to take as a result of completing Charlie's star? Now, it doesn't have to be, right, I'm going to go and get a new job. It doesn't have to be that big. It could be, I'm going to make a date with so-and-so on such and such a date to see if they will have coffee with me and I can pick their brains. That's a brilliant action. It's helping you. You're doing something about your challenge. Brilliant. So that's Charlie's star. And as I said, the best that can happen did happen. And this is our, I don't know, our happy ever after. And Charlie is so much part of our lives. And, you know, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in front of you here today. And, you know, if my journey's inspired one person, then my journey is done. My job is done. My journey's not done. I really want to live past 50. But you can see we're very happy here. This is Joshua. He's on the left there. And he's now 21. He's doing an apprenticeship and he's finding his own way. He's very happy. And then Ruby, she's 16. She's just done her GCSEs. And she was born 2 weeks before Charlie's first anniversary. Weirdly enough, her birth due date was going to be the same day that Charlie passed away, that 31st of March. But again, we had a choice. I didn't want to be the victim. So we asked for Ruby to be brought forward 2 weeks, and she arrived on St. Patrick's Day. And she's just been working really hard for her GCSEs in 2024 we're in, if you're watching this. And then there's Craig, my long-suffering husband, who left his career in 2020, and he helps me, and we both run GuruYou Coaching together. And we've just devised a really lovely program that can bring bounce forward to the masses. And so we include, oh dear, I don't know where I'm going with this. What's that? So sorry about that. Just a few things for you to think about. If you would like some tools and tips, feel free to, if you would like Charlie's Star, that PDF will be sent to you just here on the left, that large QR code. And the one on the right that's not so big, that will take you to our Facebook group. So we can help you with more hints, free hints and tips to help you bounce forward in your career with confidence and clarity. And so I've really enjoyed sharing my story with you here today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for bearing with me. I hope you've enjoyed my story. If it wasn't for my story, I wouldn't be coaching. So many people have had such lovely things happen. I've had emails saying, you know, Rebecca, thanks to the Bounce Forward program, I have got my promotion. Thanks to the Bounce Forward program, I bought my house, my first house. One person even thanked me because they'd given up alcohol. And that's definitely not what we were aiming for. It was a career-based program. But there's so much that we can do. And that is because of Charlie. And so, you know, I would never say that bad things happen for a reason. I can't imagine a reason why someone would lose a child, but I do know that good things can come from really traumatic circumstances if we take that victor mentality. And of course, there's time for being in the victim space. There's always time for feeling sorry for ourselves, having that pity party, and bringing out the party poopers, poppers, party poopers, party poppers, and just lying in front of the sofa, in front of Netflix on the sofa for a couple of days. Absolutely, we do. And I did think, why me? Absolutely. But in that space, we can only stay there so long before we can bounce forward. Otherwise, we won't go anywhere. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. And I look forward to hearing from you whenever you're ready. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.